This week, I'm going over what's happening in the real estate market. We've just, as of today, it's September 7th, Bank Canada this morning at 7 a.m. BC time here just announced interest rate increase of another 0.75%. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit, but we're also going to look at what the real estate market has done in August. We saw actually sales rebound this last month. So how the real estate market is currently doing, and we're going to look at a number of different stats and that sort of thing as we go through it. So, but as I already mentioned, so if this is something you like, you get value out of, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you do want to see more of it, that just helps me know you like what you're seeing. Otherwise, I might go try something else. Anyways, but looking at it for the real estate market, just generally speaking, in August, the sales rebounded. So we had quite a significantly low amount of sales last month in July. In the previous month in July, it was under 300, which was just substantially lower. Part of that was just kind of, I think, a little bit of the balancing of the market after a couple interest rate increases. Tough to know, but things, it seems like buyers are getting a little bit more comfortable with the rising rate environment and a little bit more aware of what do rising rates account for payments and how to navigate around it. Higher interest rates really focus on just higher payments, and really what it's going to factor on is people can only afford so much, so then it's going to bring the average home prices down, generally speaking. So that's just, a little bit of supply and demand, I guess, is really how it's going to work out. This week we're going to look at 3 different avenues here. So the sales for how we're looking on the 10-year average on sales, which is the first little bit what we're going to look at, and then average price and correlation with it with the sales with the increase in the interest rates. So we're just going to look at the last 3 months, 4 months, and correlate with the prices, how the average home prices have changed with the increase in interest rates. And then we're also going to look at the overall dollar volume. Less homes, I guess, are selling right now compared to what it was last year, and what we're comparing a lot of the crazy market there. But how does that correlate to overall dollar volume, what's actually selling, because that is a good indication of, because it also factors in what the amount of price growth we've seen over the last few years. So looking at, we'll just hit, without further ado, let's just hit number 1 here. So the total number of sales. So we're looking at this chart here. What you're going to see is the past 10 years. So I just want to go a long time horizon on this one, and just to kind of see where we're at compared to previous years. For the overall number of sales, we're right around this 400. The total amount of sales, what we had in August was 406, and this is in the weekly email. So if you haven't subscribed to the weekly email and you do want to get information on it, there is a link below to get it just right into your email every week, just real estate information there. So so we had 406, and that's down from, we're making a lot of comparisons to the last 2 years. So we're 406 sales is down from 561 and 693 in the last 2 years here. However, in comparison to the years prior to it, the more stable times before, who knows, all the stuff happened there, 432 and 472. So we're actually on track, a little bit below 2018 and 2019. However, we're fairly on track here. As you see, in July, we had, about 50% lower amount of sales here, over 50% lower than 2020, but around 50% for 2021. So we definitely are seeing the trend down, and even comparing it to earlier this year, February and March, before the first interest rate increase was in March, and so that was 664. So we're down about 50% from where we had been previously. Sales rebounded. 100 sales this past month, which is obviously positive, and I think people are getting more aware. It's tough to really know and put a grasp, and this is the exact cause of what's happening, why sales are down. But I think people are also just grasping the fact that things are changing, and just becoming in terms with it. So I think hopefully we'll be able to see it. We're averaging right now just below, and you'll see it on the weekly email, and I'm going to do another segment called What's New Wednesday, and we're going to look at all the new listings, what's really coming out. But when we're looking at the number of sales in anticipation for this next rate increase, which just happened today, the 0.75%. I think the last week we saw, normally we'd see it around 100 sales. What we've been seeing this past August is right around 100 sales. We're down again about 77 on the last week, last 7 days type of thing on the rolling average. So that's something we'll keep going. I don't know if that's just heading in. We're just coming off a long weekend, so it's just maybe a delay in getting some sales entered into the system. So we'll have to continue watching. A lot of different things happening, but that is something we'll want to keep watching and just keep an eye on the weekly sales and see how those are really impacting it, just to really know how the market goes, where are we trending, where we're going. So heading into number 2, so we're going to look now at the average price, and this is going to be the average price, and we're kind of going to also look at in correlation on when the interest rate started to increase. So this is the average price, and for the last 10 years. So here's obviously a lot of numbers. If you look at the chart here, you'll see where this is including condos, lots, mobile homes, everything in the entire real estate market. So this number is not going to be indicative of what single family homes are selling for, what the average sale for single family homes. This is overall just for the entire market, the condo market, everything like that. As we look at it here, so you can obviously see where the upward trend is. Had a little bit of regression here in the last, well, that was May. So when we started seeing interest rates, the peak was March. And as we look at the data here, we're going to just see in correlation. So the first interest rate increase was in March, where we saw, is right around where February was. And we just, started to see April, things were right around a little bit of a softening. But in May, when there was another interest rate increase, I believe that was when maybe it was in April when the second one happened. But April and May really took a significant dive, right? Just around $90,000 worth of average home price, and it's been sitting around that same price since March. So we took a sharp decline in May, heading into May for the overall price point, and I believe that's also what caused the sales to kind of peter out in July, as well as because people are just trying to get a hold of really what's happening with the real estate market. Our prices are going to come down, and keep in mind these are sellers also have to come to terms with the new price. So it's not just to say, and it's really differentiating the motivated buyers and just the looky-loos, and as well as the motivated sellers and just the hopefully to get it, hopefully I'll get my price kind of situation. And so it takes a lot of waiting and just coming in terms, I guess, with the current market and where things are at. So as we look at it, when we looking at it specifically, so we're down overall sales about 90,000 in the entire average sale price for the market. We're just going to look now at single family homes, just a little bit more, more indicative of the higher price points. So the higher price points typically are going to be more affected with higher interest rates, obviously. So we're seeing the average, obviously it came down, and we've seen a couple spikes in the average home price, but overall speaking, we are down, and we're looking over the 10-year average. So you can see on this curve here, it is a fairly significant increase, especially in the last 2 years. We've seen a significant increase in the overall homes. We've seen about 40% increase year over year for the last 2 years. So that's just ridiculous, kind of crazy what's happening here. February, and this, keep in mind, this is all for what has sold. So this isn't indicative of really overall markets, that sort of thing, but this is for what had sold at the time period. So you could also have, especially with the fewer number of sales, you can have one large sale skew the numbers a lot. So take this all with a grain of salt. We can look into things a little bit deeper. This is just really a baseline for what we're seeing and whatnot. So statistically, if we're seeing more homes come on the market in the lower price range, and more homes are selling at that lower price range because the interest rates are higher, well, then the average sale price is going to be obviously a little bit lower than if we had fewer sales. and all in $5 million range, right? And we had an increase in the $5 million range purchases. That will skew these numbers. So just take everything with a grain of salt a little bit. We're just using this for discussion purposes and seeing the correlation from what it was in February. So 1,354,000 in February. In March, had the first rate increase. We saw a little bit of a decline in the average sale price. Then it rebounded a little bit, and then it went down. So we're seeing the ebbs and flows. So it's been up and down and up and down and up and down over the last little bit. But in August, we had more amount of sales, and we had the average sale price down. So it's just the overall sale volume. So even though we had in July, there was 305 sales, we had in the overall market, the average sale price was 1,200,000 versus 400 sales. And we can look at that, what it was for just the single family home market, because we're looking at the whole different market, the whole market for the amount of sales. But generally speaking, we're down. So we're down about, call it 300,000, maybe 250,000 for average sale price for, if you compare what it was at its peak in February compared to last year. We're bang on. We're just over it where it was. But you can see where the average sale price in 2020, 892, 764. So that's where we're significantly higher. We're 50% higher than what it was in 2018 and 2019 type of situation. So significant amount of price appreciation over the last 2 years, no matter how you look at it. But just keep in mind, take it all with a grain of salt, because it does depend on what is selling. When we're going to look at another volume one is, so what the interest rates, and we're going to look at the correlation of the interest rates as well, from the sales volume, what we've seen over the last 10 years. Sales volume, so this is the total number of sales. So we, obviously in the last couple of years, it peaks and flows with the market, with how busy it is, obviously seasonal adjustments as well. So you always, there's peaks and valleys in every seasonal cycle as well. And you can see in this one, you can see sharp inclines here. So this peak here, we'll just look at all the data points here, but these are in the millions. So sale dollar volume all in the millions. And so we're looking at, so in August of in this past year, we saw a volume of 345 million sales. In July, it was 262. Comparing that to February, so we just compared the overall sales and the average price point from February, where it was at its peak. We're down about 50% of what it was. So we're down $200,000, $200 million in overall sales volume from when it was in February. But we had fewer average sales. So this is where the dollar volume, it really kind of tells you how much is actually selling, even at lower price points. So March, the average price point was higher in February because there was fewer sales and just had higher dollar volumes. The average price point was a little bit lower in March, but it's overall total dollar volume transacting in the market. So this is really what we look at to know what the overall market, what's the turnover in the market, how much is actually transacting, how much are people buying still. So March is when the interest rates increased, 623 million. It decreased in April, 500 to 544. So similar to what it was in February, but down $80,000 from what it was in March. And then we saw another decrease in May, June, July. It really kind of hit the bottom in July. So this past August, total dollar volume, we kind of rebounded, and we were a lot closer to where we were in June. So we had that amount of sales there. So that's just something to keep watch on. Total dollar volume, what's selling. As we looked at the average sale price and how it's increased over the last 10 years, we're also going to look at, if you recall as well, the amount of sales. What we saw for 406 sales, what we had this past month, we were pretty on par with what it was in August in 2018 and 2019. But if you look and see what the average, appreciation growth, when we're seeing about 30% growth, we're in the overall market, we are, kind of blowing the actual the numbers out by, where the overall dollar volume had transacted. So, I mean, that's going to become with the interest rate, with the appreciation we've seen in the market.